welcome to the Yeshiva League Pass podcast. This is the tip-off show, episode number 4. I'm Ari Wickes, joined by the one and only Oren Glickman. We're going to be having our special player of the week, Josh Chabbott, joining us shortly. And before we get into our show, we just wanted to thank those for making this show happen. Besides all the Yeshiva League ballers out there, obviously our sponsors. We have Holy Schnitzel, which is just the place to go to get all your chicken and eats and everything you want. They're on Uber Eats. They have locations throughout the tri-state area, a big representation in the 5 towns, a place where everyone knows to come, get a good meal, win or lose. You're going to be a winner by the end of the night if you end up the night at Holy Schnitzel. So we thank them, and then we bring in Gotta Get a Bagel. Gotta Get a Bagel is the place to start your day with bagels, appetizing. They have a whole lunch menu as well, salad, sushi, you name it, they have it. They're located in the 5 towns off of Broadway. A great place to eat. I Gotta Get a Bagel. They also do brises and also different special occasions and the bar mitzvahs as well. You name it, they have it. A great place, a great establishment. So those are our 2 main sponsors. And now we'd like to bring on the one and only player of the week, Josh Chabbott of the Magen David Warriors. First of all, Josh, thank you for joining us. I know Magen David practices about 8 days a week, so we appreciate you giving us, a little time here. But thank you for joining us for real.
Thank you for having me, Ari. Thank you. Yeah. I can't wait.
It's a pleasure. And we just, we're going to fire away with some questions. And, you had a heck of a week, heck of a season, heck of a career. We'll get into that. Obviously as a past champion and aspirations for the championship again this season. So I want to start the questions with Magen David, the program, the basketball, the history is unbelievable. I want to know, what is it like? Because I feel like in not many schools really have this. What is it like being a Magen David Warrior starting in 6th grade? You guys have a program. You have the social media. Shout out to Lunar Clips, the great photography they do. Tell us what it means to be a Magen David Warrior, from 6th grade and then now to the culmination of being a senior.
I mean, it means a lot, but I can't say it's been easy. It's been tough throughout 6th, 7th grade. I was on the verge of being benched. I had to be able to balance my student athlete. I had to be able to balance practicing, like you said, 4 or 5 times a week with school. In high school also it gets tough. But being a Magen David Warrior means a lot. It helps elevate what the school is trying to do, really trying to bring basketball and school together as one, and also it helps build the pathway for the next generation. I'm seeing 8th, 7th graders from now, they're always in the gym constantly because of the foundation that this varsity team has set.
Right. And it's true. I love the fact, I'm an athletic director, Oren's an athletic director. We obviously, have a lot of things going on in our own schools, but I love the Magen David. The uniform stayed the same from 6th grade. You have your Nike endorsement deal starting in 6th grade up to senior year. But no, realistically, you guys really put something out there that I think you strive as a 6th grader, even when you're younger, to be someone who you guys are, the example that you set. So I think it goes a long way with it. Like you said, it seems to me as an outsider watching you guys, it's not, and the way you guys carry yourself, it's not just about basketball. It's about being role models, and you and your whole program have done a tremendous job in that. So kudos to everyone there. Oren, what do you have for Josh?
Yeah, just to piggyback on Ari's question, what Spike, Benny, and Mozart have done for the Magen David basketball program, it's really unbelievable. Tell us about the experience working with them, these past 2 years. It's almost coming to an end for you, but I could definitely see a Josh Chabbott pacing the sidelines for Magen David basketball in the future.
Hopefully no one else wants to see that. We want Josh to graduate and go and do
move on
else.
to the next phase of life. Yeah. But why don't you talk about, what they've taught you, how they've helped you grow as a basketball player, and yeah.
So I'm first start off with Spike. So my 10th grade year, it didn't end the way we wanted to. We were 10-0, but Ramaz shut me down personally in the semifinals. And Spike always piggybacks to that game where me as a player, I'm a straight scorer. I love scoring. But he piggybacked, he always will piggyback that game saying, you can't win with just scoring. And you can't just win scoring, because if you have one off game, then you're not going to win. So that's what's been his mindset this year. He's also taught me a lot off the court with how to perceive myself, how, like, let's say when I'm talking to someone, like, keep your head straight. He's also taught me a lot of things on the court where, like, the whole game is mental. 20% of the game is physical, but 80% of the game is up here. And while even though he's tough, like, he's still a good guy to talk to. He's still a very nice guy. Benny and Mozart, on the other hand, like, they're like, let's say you don't want, let's say Spike's in a bad mood, you're going to Benny, like, you're talking to him about something. Like, me, Phil, and Benny, the two captains, and Benny have a chat. We're like, we'll talk about some stuff before the games. I texted Benny some stuff on DRS before our game. I got in the Saxon tournament. Unfortunately, we lost that one. And Mozart's just like the overall guy. He's just like, he's the glue guy. He's like the guy you could hack with, but also he's the guy who will rip you to pieces when needed.
Right. It's funny. I used to joke with Mozart, and I have the ultimate respect, as I said, inside your program for your coaches. But I used to joke with Mozart when I see him at the games. I go, I want to be a guy who pulls out the chair and gives it to Spike. Like, like he started off on that, and then now you've seen him. I mean, he's an integral part of your team that won the championship last year and everything he does. And kudos to Benny. Besides Spike, like you said, he may come across not to anyone else as a rough and yell at you, but the sweetest as can be. I mean, he has that. He does that with everything he does with his own personal life and his business and everything. So, I want to talk about last year. You won the championship, and you mentioned something before. In 10th grade, you said you came up a little short. You were a scorer. Everyone knew if you're going to beat Magan in JV, you got to stop Josh, and then hopefully you can get it done. What was it like going to the varsity, having Moses Smecki come in as a transfer from Hillel, and I know he went there in middle school, to you now having to kind of take not a backseat because Sardar, Smecki, and you, I mean, as a third scorer, like, how did that work internally for yourself? And then how do you correlate that now to being the man on this team and to obviously having the same aspirations to try to get back to that championship game?
So last year, it wasn't like a hard shift. It was like a hard shift in like how I was training. Usually I was training with the ball in my hands, dribbling and all that. But once I saw, okay, we have Moses, we have Mark, Haber, Phil dishing me the ball. Really all I do last year was go 40% plus from three, hit some open layups in transition, and the float game. Like, I didn't have to do a lot of things on the ball. So
Wait, hold on, Josh. That sounds like a lot of things to the common people. Just so you know, 40% hit your floaters and all the other stuff. It's a lot, but go on.
So like so instead of shooting a lot of pull-ups and like a lot of things with the ball, like practicing with the ball in my hands, I was practicing a lot off the ball, like shooting threes off the catch and shooting layups just like off the pass. While this year, once there's no Mark, there's no Haber, no Smecki, they're all in Israel right now. While Mark's back, I had to take a role where I was the main guy, where I had to create for everyone. I had to create my own shots, and in the beginning it was difficult, but now like once I have the hang of it, so it's gotten a lot easier as the games progress.
Right. So, and also, so you won that championship last year. Unbelievable run. You guys basically ran through everyone. And I know you had those amazing matchups with Flatbush, even in the Sarachek. An amazing game. Smecki hits the shot to send to overtime. You lose it eventually in overtime, but tremendous season. So how is it now? Because I know Mag and David, championship or bust. I mean, I'm not breaking news here. This is the mantra that you guys go on. So you struggled a little bit when I say struggled, you lost a game or two at the beginning of the season. So now you guys are cooking. You had a run through Saturn where you kind of blew everyone out. Well, minus the 0.4 second shot that you hit. I forgot about that. The buzzer beater. But now is it is it a championship season that you guys envision you can get? And if so, what is it going to take for you guys to get there?
So one, I look at our matchup against TABC Saturday night as the biggest matchup of our year. That game's a must-win because it has very big playoff implications, and also going into our break, if we can have a win, it helps boost our morale a lot. Also, early in our year, we lost around 7 games this year. 4 of them happened to be the DRS, which is it's demoralizing. But when you go through the games, there's just very simple mistakes. So we really could have won 2 or 3 of those games if we just fixed those little simple mistakes. And the first 2 times we lost them, I was injured before the season opener at TRS. I pulled my groin and I wasn't able to play for 2 weeks. So that was my first game getting back into it. And then the game at North Shore, which was gonna end up being one of the biggest games of our year that we lost, I hurt my knee in that game and I wasn't able to be at full strength. So those were like those early losses, like we're still trying to get back from it. But this Saturn tournament helped us like really see what we are. We're a defensive team, we're a gritty team, not like last year where we could give up a few possessions, so we have to like lock in on defense. So yeah, I really think this year we can win it all. It's just gonna be a lot tougher road than it was last year.
But do you view, and then I'll let Oren go jump in. Do you view DRS as the biggest threat? I mean, obviously they're in your division, so you played them. Obviously, you said I didn't realize you played them 4 times. I'm sorry to hear that for you. That's a lot of games against one really good team. But do you view them as the biggest threat? I mean, it's no surprise, but where do you view them as where it in terms of where you want to be and to get through them?
I'm good with playing anyone, but right now they're like the team that like it's gonna be a tough one when we know we're going in. It's gonna be a dogfight going into it every single time. Well, every game we have is gonna be a dogfight, but especially with them because of how experienced we are with them and how much this year they aren't beating us. We've had 3 close games with them. First one they blew us out. 3 close ones they pulled away in all 3. So like right now, like they are our biggest competitor.
Got it. Oren, what do you got?
So I had the opportunity to watch you in a previous podcast with your co-captain Phil, and I think a question was posed to you. What's the difference between last year's team and this year's team? And I think you mentioned that this year's team has a lot more dogs compared to last year's team. Could you elaborate on what you exactly meant by that? Like, does it go down to like, maybe the talent's not there compared to last year, so this team is a lot more hardworking compared to last year's squad?
So first, I just want to give a shout out to my co-captain Phil. Would not be anywhere without him. Been playing with him since 5th grade. That's one. Two, when I say dogs, I'm saying like these juniors. I'm gonna give names: Jack Dweck, Solly Hara. They're not as gifted talently as Mark or a Moses, but they'll punch. There's a ball on that floor. They're diving on that thing. Hara, I've seen him progress from a soft big man to a guy who's taking offensive fouls now, getting blocks. Like these juniors, their understanding of varsity is, and these guys that will punch to win any single game. And also our seniors, Abed, Alphonse, they're understanding the idea of, hey, we might not be the most gifted players, but if we just lock in on defense, we're going to win these games. And all I have to do is now, like me, score and get these guys in position, and we'll win games.
Yeah. What's it exactly been like, being the guy sophomore year to, be having this variety of talent with Moses, Mark, Jack, and then being the guy again senior year?
So just like
the trajectory.
So like I just had to shift my mindset. When I was going to 11th, I was more taking like a backseat role where Mark and Moses were the ball handlers, and all I had to do was hit my open shots, which I did, and we won the games. While going to this year, it was more of what do I have to do to get my shots off? Because I know the league is gunning for me. Every time I'm playing a team, it's how can they stop me? I'm playing a DRS, I'm playing a TVC. It's how they're going to stop me. So one, I have to train my mind where I can't get frustrated if I have a few points in the first quarter, because I know if I'm checked out, then my team's not going to win. While last year, if I had an off game, we had the whole all-star team on our team, so it's not going to do anything.
Right. Here, I have 2 more questions. I'm going to say one, then Oren will go, and then I'll have one more to close. Talk about, and I'm going to go back to last year. You played in so many big games, right? As I mentioned earlier, Flatbush, we know the rivalry, you guys are all buddies, but when you're on the court, you want to beat each other. The programs have the history, the championship, the Sarachek. What one game last year really stood out for you? If you had to say last year, the biggest game in my mind, or the most important game to me that I remember over everything, and I will not only today, tomorrow, but 10 years, 20 years down the road, which is that game, and why does that stand out?
Could I have 2 games?
Yeah, okay, absolutely. We'll give you 2.
So the finals game will always stand out to me just because we beat Flatbush in YU with like 2,000 people there. That's something I'll never forget. And the Sarachek finals is like one game I will never forget just because like we lost that one. If we win that game, we're in the discussion as one of the best teams ever.
Right. You still are in the discussion. I think the DRS team that went undefeated with Gabe Leifer, I don't think will ever be touched unless someone really runs the table and goes undefeated and wins all those championships.
Yeah.
But yeah, last year, and I mean, I've been following Yeshiva League way too long, but you that team last year was one of best teams that we'll probably ever see with all the firepower you had. So yeah, those are two incredible games, and it's interesting. One you won, obviously, and the other one you lost. But I think that's the beauty of sports, that you're always going to remember when you climb the mountaintop, and also when you fell a little short, and how that all transpires. What do you got, Oren?
So you actually discussed the TABC game on Saturday night. You think of it as one of, if not the biggest game of the season. You guys actually had the opportunity to play them in Memphis, and that game was a good one. It was a classic. It went to overtime. So the fact that you almost knocked them off, I think you got Kinderler in early foul trouble.
He had 4 in the third. I remember that, or early fourth. Just watching him.
That does that already give you guys the belief that that you can pull this off? Because I'm sure a lot of the bookies will have TABC going in as the favorites.
I think let's like you said, the bookies will probably have them as favorites, but they know who we are. We played them in Canada. We played them in Memphis. They know what we're going to bring to the table, and like these guys know what Mag and David is. Even in Memphis, when we were down 26-10, we just watched the game over today in film. We didn't bat an eye. We just locked in on defense. We started to get better shots for each other, and then even in crunch time, there were some times where we were up by 1 and we could have pulled away by 5, but we missed a few key shots, and all of a sudden now it's an overtime game. So those little plays where you're throwing a turnover instead of shooting the open shot. If you're able to capitalize on the plays like those easy plays, then that game in Memphis is a win for us. So me going to this game, I think it's going to be a very close one at Maggins on Saturday night. It's going to be a classic. I think the key to the game will be stopping Eyal and stopping David Sachs from getting his shots off.
It sounds like we're already previewing our game of the week, which unfortunately for Oren is going to be TABC Mag and David. So we'll discuss that later in the show. So my final question for you, and I was thinking about it. I usually say 3 players that you played against or so who you think are the best competition wise. But I rethought it, kind of getting boring with that. My question to you is this. You have to form a team of current Yeshiva League ball players, varsity players. You're going to an all-star game against the West Coast with Beatron, with Gabai, out-of-town players. Who's the team you're putting together? You're on it. You got 4 other spots. Who is your team? So it's got to be a team that also works together. It can't be 4 big guys. Who's that team that you're taking to compete against all-star game at the highest level?
So obviously, Phil Scher is being my one. I think he's the best defender in this league. I could score on literally anybody. He's the one person I'll never be able to score on. 2 from DRS, Svi Saidi killed us in the Saxon tournament. I've never seen someone as shifty as him, athletic. Also, they got someone with him. I'm the 3. I want to put Eyal as my center. He's very dominant. And at my 4. I'm not going to go with my 4. I'm trying to think.
Oh, he was cruising all right, go ahead.
Oh, my 4, I'll go with Joe Aaron from DRS. Very athletic 4, can shoot the 3 ball. I'll go with him. He's also been giving us problems.
All right, so basically it's DRS Magnet team, and then we'll throw Eyal. No. Hey, you know what? I don't think many people would argue or want to face that team. So that's a great squad. And, maybe down the road, there have been some discussions with the West Coast to try to bring this all-star game that we had last year, which was the Yeshiva League all-star game, to kind of bring everyone together. So we are seeing if that is a possibility. But
I think we'll win that. I think we'll win that 100%.
Okay.
Yeshiva League versus West Coast, I think we have that.
Those guys are pretty good.
Well, Sarachek has improved as much in the last couple of years.
True, unfortunately.
Right. But in the last comment, and then I'll let you go on. I don't think Josh is backing down from anyone. I think LeBron James is on the other side. Josh probably thinks I could probably score against me. He probably can't guard me, so we'll be all right.
I want him. I want everyone. Right. I'm coming for everyone.
What do you got, Oren?
No, Ari, it's yours. You got the floor.
Oh, okay. Well, I think I covered everything. I just want to talk about, like I said, the program, you and a very special shout out to Tzvi Saidi. He was possibly going to be a player of the week. And honestly, one of the only reasons we didn't bring him in is because we kind of already had the DRS representation when we had Joe Aaron. And we know bringing Josh Chabbott is no second helping. And you've had an unbelievable career, but definitely a huge shout out to Tzvi Saidi, who, like you said, had an incredible Saxon tournament and season. And I've known him since he was younger, and he's someone who's kind of not unheard of, unknown a little bit until, like you said, Josh, until you face him, and then you're like,
He flies under
oh
the
my God.
radar. He flies under the
Yes,
radar because it's
flies
Joe.
under the radar, right?
But then when you play him, he's the one who's giving you 20 points and beating you.
We're beating you 4 times, as you may remember. But no, we just, again, thank you for joining us. Congrats on a great start, middle, but it's really your career as a whole, in the totality. It's been special to watch. I've seen you play since you were a sophomore.
Thank you.
Not only the way you play, the way you carry yourself, and the smile you have. You know, when you see people, you know them, you don't know them. You're a great role model to not only the community out in Brooklyn, but all around basketball as well. So
thank you, Ari. I appreciate that.
All right. You got it. All right. And that was our player of the week, Josh Chabbott. And now we're going to get into, Oren, we're going to get into our rankings for the where we are as far as the rankings for the week. But, shout out to Josh, Oren. As we said before we get into our rankings, it's unbelievable. It's really amazing to see the maturity of these kids, because as Oren and I, as you and I have talked off air, we don't know these kids much other than seeing them on the court and, competing, helping each other up, but really wanting to win games. But it's just it's a testament to all these schools and their families, the way they carry themselves. I think it's really wonderful.
I think also what I love about Josh in particular is that his appetite never seems to go away.
Right.
The guy has already accomplished quite a lot in his career, but he just keeps on going.
Yeah, I mean, 30-2 last year, 31-2, whatever the record was. He remembers the one loss, right? It's one of the biggest games, and he played in multiple championship games last year. He won Satrin. He won. He only one he didn't win was Memphis, and then Sarachek. But he won the Magen David tournament. Yeah, so unbelievable him, and I'm happy we were able to have a Magen David warrior on, because they are just what Yeshiva League basketball is about. But let's get into our rankings. We had a little hiatus for a couple of weeks, and as we alluded to with Josh, a lot of it hasn't really been upset. We've had MTA, who we'll talk about, who's kind of taking the league by storm. But let's get into our rankings. So we have 20, but they're kind of out of the league. Mag and Abraham, nice to know you. They're 20. You'll be there for the rest of the season. 19 is Or Yisrael, who only one win, disappointing season. Again, we've talked about Stern and Gross. It's Yermy and some of their players. A lot of talent. I just saw them in person the other night. It's just like they're not committed. It just looks like they're not as committed to defense as they are offense. So, they're going to score 40, 50, 60 points, but they're probably going to give up 10 to 20 more just based on that. So we have them at number 19. At 18, we have JEC, who really just had a really tough Saturn tournament. I believe they were winless. They were competitive in a couple games, and some of them went down to the wire in the consolation games. But again, I think it's a rebuilding year for them. And they're at number 18. At 17, we have Kushner, who, again, I haven't seen in person. I know you've seen them. Everyone says, they're 17, but don't sleep on them. You got to come to play. What have you seen in Kushner?
No, I think their last outing was actually at Hillel, and they only lost by 13. We talked about this before the season, that they moved 2 sophomores up to varsity, and that's the reason why their JV team is not as successful as they could have been this year. So the fact that they have 2 sophomores who are starting and getting regular minutes, maybe 2 years from now we could be singing a different tune about Kushner.
Right, absolutely, yeah, and that's the truth. A lot of programs are doing this now. They're bringing their kids up, taking their lumps as sophomores, but you get a year under your belt as a varsity player, as an underclassman. I mean, you see it. We both talked about it. The level of physicality on the varsity level and the speed it's twofold JV. Yeah. So to get that experience early on, it really bodes well for their future.
It's definitely working out for Isaac Stepner. Frisch, he's their top player as a sophomore.
Correct. He's a top player in the league. And then at 16, we have Waterbury, who we've kind of talked about, kind of been disappointing. They had a good win the other day or other week, in the past week or so. They beat YDE. I don't know the kid's name, but he put up a lot of points.
Dahari.
Yeah. So he seems, again, I haven't seen them there in the other division. I haven't seen them or play or watch them much. But what have you seen from Waterbury?
I think if Alfasi had stayed, seeing him and Dahari together, that would have been a great 1-2 punch. It just seems like Waterbury is unfortunately one player short. And it seems like, unfortunately, they're going to be on the outside looking in this year with the playoffs.
Right. And then at 15, we have I want to say a disappointing team thus far, and I don't think it's any earth news, but earth shattering news. But the Hafter Hawks, again, their team with talent. They have Ness Salem, who's a bona fide 1A scorer, and they have nice surrounding pieces with Nate Meyer, who's a good shooter, and other players, and obviously Joey Honig, a good coach for a long time. But I think that they've just had they're in danger of missing the playoffs. Missing the playoffs is obviously there's a lot of parity, a lot of competition, but I think their season comes down to game against Rambam, and whoever wins is going to make that 6 seed playoff spot. I mean, have you seen Hafter? What do you think of them? Based on what you've seen.
Well, I think they're going to look at Saturn this past weekend as a failure. The fact that they got knocked out of Tier 1 on Saturday night. So they already looked at that as a failure, and now they just have to prepare for this game in a do or die situation. You would probably know better than me. When was the last time Hafter didn't make the playoffs?
Yeah, I don't. I want to say it might have been a couple of years ago when Ness's brother Jacob Salem. I think that year. I'm sorry, Jaime Salem. It might have been a couple of years, or if they did, they stuck in also as a 6 seed. But yeah, generally they're a lock for the playoffs. So I think, look, beat Rambam. I think they're in, unless Rambam upsets someone else. But they got their work cut out for them. At 14,
Rambam also have more room for error because they have more games left to play.
Exactly, but right. So they're going to have to, if they lose to Hafter, but they potentially win 2 of 3 of the last games, they can still get in. At number 14 is Hank Hurricanes, who Hank had a great game at Saturn, and I think they had a really good showing at Saturn in general. They beat Hafter in an overtime game. Great back and forth. I was watching that on the live stream. Guys' names I didn't know, but I heard there's this one transfer. You may have a little more information, but they're like the current Boston Celtics. They may shoot 53s a game and hope half of them go in. And if that happens, they're going to win. What do you know about Hank and the transfer they got?
I don't think we've talked about Hank basketball since they've had Orem Batesh, as being relevant. And I think starting next year, we will talk about Hank.
Yeah, their JV is strong.
Their JV is up and coming, and you had this transfer from Rambam to Vidovitz, who is
he's a junior.
He's a knockdown shooter, a junior, and he was actually our good friend Poppers actually brought up the fact that this Davidovitz kid was a Yeshiva League Pass All-Star when he was at Rambam last year as a sophomore. So
wow,
a lot to be excited about in terms of the future for Hank.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, and impressive. Their star is definitely pointed upwards right now as far as where they're going. And then at number 13 we have Rambam, kind of just been beating some teams. They might have a little easier schedule, but hey, you got to play the teams who you have to play around your schedule, right? So they're beating teams, that they're supposed to. Good for them. But a great program. We mentioned Aaron Azos, the new coach for the team, doing a great job. And hey, Rambam sniffing. It's ironic. Rambam as a 6 seed is almost like a championship for them, where Hafter not making the playoffs is almost like the opposite, complete failure on the other end. So
listen, it's the roll of the dice, and they're pouncing on it right now.
Right, they're doing a great job. Then at number 12, we have the Heschel Heat. Heschel just had a good game against MTA. I didn't see the game, but I saw the score. They lost by 10 points. Again, Heschel, they're going to be fighting in the what is it, the Western Conference? I always get confused because we're all
probably with Ramaz and Frisch.
Right, Ramaz and Frisch for the 6 seed. One of those 3 teams will not make the playoffs. Again, they're solid. They have Jordan Cohn Mintz, I believe is the name. Really, really strong player, and they're at number 12. At number 11, YDE. They've kind of been staying around this spot. They're like in that dangerous spot where if they drop a game or two, I don't think they're not in danger of missing the playoffs, but I think they could affect, having a better first round matchup for them, or, playing one of the better teams.
I think just like Rambam, they've benefited from a soft schedule.
I think it's that conference is this year. And it's last year, everyone would say, well, the other conference was better potentially because they had the 4 teams in the semis, but their conference is a little weaker. So when you have 2 games against, of the bottom feeder teams, right.
They lost to Waterbury last week, so that'll be considered a bad loss. But I'm curious to see them on this week because they play a non-conference opponent in Heschel.
Oh, that's a key matchup for both of them. Yeah, that's going to be a really good win for one of them and a tough loss for the other team who doesn't win, obviously. So then we have at number 10 is the Frisch Cougars, and some people would say it's been a disappointing season for Frisch. Record-wise, I think it is, but I don't really think expectation-wise it's been that far off. I know their best player is a sophomore, Isaac Stepner, who's probably a top 10 player in the league right now as a sophomore. I mean, I'm not counting the players in my head, but he's in the top 12 players. I think we could both probably say that. I'm not getting to number 12 without mentioning Isaac Stepner, even as a sophomore. But I think other than him, they have some nice pieces. They just don't have the next like star guy that they could look to.
So even if this is a season below Frisch standards, if they do squeak into the playoffs, which I think a lot of us predict they will, it's a team a top seed does not want to draw.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Because I like we said, they have experience. Schachter, Reich, who's a good ball player, and obviously Isaac, who, if you hold him below 20, it's a win. But he could also dominate the game in the paint, play outside. So I think
and they beat Mag and David, so we know they had the capability.
Right. Yeah, absolutely, and they're right, and they all their games are generally competitive, even against the SARs and TABCs. They're obviously right there. At number 9 is Flatbush Falcons. Shout out to Coach Malk. I think he's doing a phenomenal job. We've mentioned the unfortunate season-ending injury to Sammy Jamal, but I know those guys are just. I don't think anyone wants to play them either, and I think Matt is doing probably as good a job as he did last year with all the stars he had, with the team he has now to be where they are. And they have a great game at the end of the year against Magan, which is, if they upset Magan in that game, like they're playing really well. Ricky had it as a bucket. But yeah, what do you think about Flappers as far as, their season?
That game is going to be very interesting at the end of the season. Hopefully that'll be a game of the week that I can actually opine on. But if Flatbush were to win that game, that would really send the Eastern Conference into a tailspin. We talked about the amazing things that Mozar, Benny, and Spike have done at Magan, and Coach Matt Malk has to be right up there, right next to them, with what he's trying to do at Flatbush. He's kind of emulating that Magan David formula and has been bringing it to Flatbush in the last few years.
What as they say, imitation is the best form of flattery. So Flatbush and Magan are very in tune with what each other are doing. So I think, I think Magan for the podium. I'm sorry, the pendulum right now is on their end as how great they've been playing. But Flatbush is definitely, trying to bring that down into even the playing field. But they're doing a great job, and Coach Malk the whole program. At number 8, we have the Ramaz Rams, who are again, without Isaac Ohayon with his season-ending injury, doing a good job. They just beat Ori Yisrael, so they had a good win there. And they still have a couple games. They play Kushner. They play MTA Hillel. They have a lot of games left. They still probably have half their games left. So they're going to be in it. It's going to be, are there secondary, I should say guys who were secondary players, Nate Sugar, Bobby Segura. When I say secondary, maybe just not the first option when Isaac was there. If they can maintain the level of consistency that they need, and then a kid like Stanley Carey, who can really elevate them. You saw them against TABC in a great game that TABC ended up winning in overtime. What have you seen from Ramaz as a number 8 right now?
So they're about to play 3 games in a span of 5 days. Is that correct?
Yeah,
so that'll be a
like
real
that.
test in terms of conditioning and stamina. The TABC game should make their future opponents very, very scared. I think with the Ohio injury, TABC went into that game as overwhelming favorites, and there were moments, if not the majority of the game, where Ramaz were the better team than TABC.
Right. So that's what they are. Like that's what I think a lot of these teams we're talking about, Frisch, Ramaz, Flappers, like you better bring your game, even for the teams as we get to 1, 2, and 3 in the seedings. Like I don't think there's any upsets this year. Really, last year we've talked about it. Flappers, Magan on their own tier. I think this year it's like even the teams that are not championship teams right now, they could beat a lot of different teams. So I think that's where the parity stands out. At number 7, another great coaching job. This is Shalom at North Shore. Again, I don't think they have. They lost a lot of players, but they won tier 2 in Satrin, which obviously everyone wants tier 1, but a strong team, a team that you have to really. They have a lot of offensive weapons, and they're really. They come out and play. That's North Shore at number 7. At number 6, you have the Hillel Heat. And Hillel they're like Jekyll and Hyde almost. You know what I mean? Like they have a lot of talent, but it just seems like they just can't beat the teams above them. You know what I mean? They take care for the most part of the teams below. But when you think they're going to give DRS a game, they're going to give TABC. I don't know if they played TABC. They did already. They're going to give TABC a game, or even MTA they lost to. Like, they haven't been able to take the level of talent they have to really, elevate them. What have you seen, and what do you think of that on Hillel?
Yeah, I think a perfect example of that is actually what we saw this past weekend at Satrin against DRS. Not the second DRS game, the first DRS game in play when they were up 17 without a shot clock, and they
by the way, I was going to jump in there, Oren, and say that's without a shot clock, exactly, and it still came back.
I agree. We know this Hillel team has the talent, but they still need that statement win, against an SAR, a DRS, or TABC, and they've fallen short. Combined with the fact that they did drop a home game to MTA. They didn't lose to MTA on the road. They lost to MTA in their home court. Not to take away from MTA at all. So, but we still can't count them out. Eli Braha's a 1,000-point scorer. Tobias and Terran, the Twin Towers, are still going to make this Hillel team formidable come playoff time. We still have a lot to see from them.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we have at number 5, the aforementioned Mag and David Warriors, who are just right now, and obviously Josh was our player of the week. They are just clicking. Everyone talked about, if you're going to play Mag, play them early in season, right? Because they were like, everyone kind of looked at, and you and I discussed it. We're like, yeah, Maggie's not the same Maggie. They lost all the stars that they had. But, you got Josh, let him score. You got Phil, who's awesome. But, like, what else is there that you need to worry about? Well, I think everyone is worried. I think with the level of enthusiasm that you saw Josh talk about his teammates and the guys, the juniors especially, how they've elevated, I think, and we'll talk about them in the game of the week, but, what do you see from Magan as at number 5 seed?
It goes back to what you said. It doesn't matter who is sporting the Mag and David colors. It's the Mag and David brand that automatically puts fear in their opponent's eyes. This is now the time for Mag and David to start heating up.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're playing great. They're at number 5. Then at number 4, with a record of 10-1, the MTA Lions, they continue. Again, I haven't seen them in firsthand, haven't seen them in person. I think the only live stream I saw was a little of the Hillel game, and it was.
You'll see them this weekend, though, right?
Right. Well, it's Saturday night, so I'm gonna probably be watching the live stream. Don't tell everyone, but I need to take a game off. But they're going to be playing Ramaz this Saturday night, which is a big game more so for Ramaz, but not even really, because MTA wants that 1 seed. I mean, they're in a dogfight with TABC and SAR. But they have just been not impressing the socks off of me. I mean, I know they got a Heichel transfer who's been phenomenal. We talked about him. He may be a player of the week. He's right there as a possibility. But I can't say the name. Number 34, the big man. What's his name?
Treyhoff.
Right. Great big man. And then they seem to be like a cohesive team, like a lot of parts working together. What have you seen at MTA? And again, 10-1. What do you?
Got to be the comeback story of the year. Did MTA finish as the worst team in the league last year?
I think so. I remember them being. It would be one of the teams we used to brush over. We talked about the rankings, but at 20 MTA, and I think JC, like kind of like that's the problem.
Right. Job well done to Coach Oshie Sullivan. I don't know. We always say about how basketball is a team sport, and one player doesn't change the dynamic of your team. But Jakey Abinayim. I think his presence has made MTA stronger. Like, he's made it Treyhoff a better basketball player.
Is he a point guard?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Or I think he plays the 2
but has the ball in his hands.
Yeah, their junior Yishai Nice handles point guard duties a lot. He was an all-star last year for MTA. But I think also what's amazing is MTA JV wasn't good either last year.
No.
So this 10-1 record came out of thin air.
Is the big guy Tutanov? He's a junior or senior?
Treyhoff?
Yeah. I butchered it again. That's why I just give it.
He's a senior.
He's a senior. Okay. So yeah, they're just like great. And again, their schedule wise might have been a little easier, but they still have to play SAR. They still have to play TABC. They still have to play Fresh, Fresh, Ramaz. They still have those teams who are Hillel. They have to play these teams. They may have a little easier out of conference game, but they're doing a great job at kudos to them.
And they'll actually be deserving of a tier 1 seed this year.
Yes, right. This won't be 16 tier 1 seed MTA. Okay, your school from California can now destroy them. Go ahead. But right, this year they are well deserving of a tier one high ranking. And then at number 3 we have the TABC Storm, who is just the defending champion from the JV, as this same group of kids now as a varsity team. They have the one loss to SAR on a close game, and they beat SAR, but they're really, really strong. Again, we'll talk about the game of the week against Magan, but Eyal, Yona Mandel, Sachs, what Josh talked about, the juniors, Borgen, and who's the other, Faber?
Faber.
Right. Just a strong team. And Oz just does, he's the puppeteer that just, always, and I'm sorry, kudos to Coach Honig as well. I was at a game where Coach Honig, I thought he was going to slam the table. He was going to break it. He was so into the game, and it's great to see someone with such energy and passion. So they just do it. They're doing a great job, and they're having a great season. And it's I think it's a championship, obviously, caliber team. Anything you want to add to on TABC as far as them at number 3?
I feel they deserve. They escaped by the skin of their teeth against Ramaz. They should have lost that game. And now they've had a very long layoff because they don't play at all on Hanukkah, and now they're in midterms. So, we'll discuss that more as we preview the game of the week, to see if that'll be a challenge for them as they go into Magan.
Right. Yeah. But by the way, we'll get to that. But the layoffs are tough. They're tough when you're not playing competitive basketball in a team like Magan. We'll talk about that in a minute, coming off of playing, 6 games in 2 nights or 3 days, whatever the weekend was. So TABC at number 3. At number 2, this might have been a little different, and you and I and the other, anonymous voter kind of went back in this. I personally had, well, we're going to say right now we have number 2 SAR, who I believe in our last ranking was number 1, and they played DRS, who obviously we haven't mentioned is number 1, but they had the one game where Joe Aaron was about, this much away from, winning that game. But SAR, I think, also has kind of had a layoff here. They're also
they haven't played in over a month.
Right. They haven't played in a while. I know they do schedule some out of league games against some of the Westchester schools like LaFell and some other ones to kind of, I guess, get them back into the feeling of the game. Right. But we're going to have to see what a layoff is. They're obviously going to have some games coming up. I don't know who they're playing upcoming right now, but I don't think they
had a game
MTA.
against JEC this week. That was probably an easy one for them.
Right. But they haven't played MTA yet, or have they?
No.
Right. They haven't played MTA. They have a game. They
have to go to Hillel still.
They have to go to Hillel. They have 2 against Ramaz. They have Frisch probably, or maybe they played Frisch. I don't remember.
They played twice already.
Right. So they're still going to have some competitive games. So again, great team. Halpert, Weiss, probably might be the best 2 players on one team. I guess DRS probably has an argument there between Saidi and Aaron as far as a twosome. But great players. The only thing that may come back to hurt them a little bit is the not the presence of a big man if they have to face like an Eyal or one of the bigger kids in the league. Although there's not that many big kids, but TABC is going to give them a problem. But they're at number 2, and then at number 1 we have DRS, and it well deserved. They just ran through Satrin, a really top heavy field, and they beat everyone. They didn't really have any close games. I mean, against Hillel they had the close game, but
that was also following a Yeshiva League game that they played earlier.
Yeah, I didn't even know about that. So they by mistake scheduled 2 games in one day,
I think they hosted Rambam at the Greenhouse. They won that game, and they were like, all right, time to go to Hafter.
Right. Okay. If you're a 17, 18, 16-year-old kid and you can play 2 games in 2 hours, it's like, yeah, why not? The coaches, on the other hand, may be like, oh my gosh, I need to recover. I need to do all that. But DRS also, what I spoke before about maybe MTA, but DRS is like 5 guys who just fit together very well. We have Joe, Saidi, they have the Spodak, Solomon, Slomnicki, the shooter they bring off the bench, number 15. Going to butcher his name, but he's a great shooter. And then Moshe Cohen doing a great job. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. By the way, no one does names as good as you, Oren. I just want to let you know that. No one does them as bad as me either. So it's like a combo. But yeah, you're amazing with that. I can barely pronounce my name. That's another story. But yeah, no, that's Moshe Cohen. Moshe's been great. He replaced legend Avram Stein, but he just brings energy, composure, and just like a presence about him. And he posted something I saw, which was really cool. He had won Satrin as a player 22 years ago. He went to Hafter, I believe. I'm pretty sure. And then he won the other this past weekend as a coach. So that's like a little perspective as these kids playing now. You never know, what your affiliation is going to be with, as the game continues, where you're going to be. But what do you have? Anything to add on DRS as the number one of our rankings?
Listen, credit to them. They finally ended the Mag and David Satrin dynasty.
Yeah.
And it's unbelievable. I still look back to DRS's tier 2 Sarachek title. I think that was kind of like a springboard for them.
Yeah, you mentioned that. I think it's a very good point.
And Moko has them all bought in. They are all bought in, and I'm ready to see DRS. I think I'm prepared that we'll see DRS in the championship game. I don't know against who though.
Yeah, and by the way, and also one other thing interesting that I think Moko's done a really good job. He's developing other players like Mikey Freund, who's not a huge name, but a bench player who came up big against SAR. He's a junior, but he's kind of come up. He's a bigger kid, and he's got some depth now also where, we mentioned kids, when you could bring 3-4 kids off the bench who can contribute, that's a big deal. And then you have your stars who you don't want to take out of the game. So those are our rankings. DRS at 1, well deserved. But again, DRS, SAR, TABC, I think those teams right there can kind of be intertwined. MTA, again, I'm not ready to put MTA into that tier just yet, just to give them more reason to want to beat everyone else, I guess.
Right.
But
well, they've only had one game against those top 3 teams. That was against TABC, and TABC handled them pretty comfortably. So.
Right. So I think MTA, look, they'll have an opportunity, right? You said they have to play, SAR and some of those teams. So those are our rankings. And now we're going to get into, I'm sorry, Oren, when we discussed our game of the week, we said, okay, you were actually the one who said it to me. It's like, before you even look, I know what it's going to be. I'm like, oh, great. What is it? You're like TABC, Mag and David. I'm like, oh, let me go through it. I'll find another game. Don't worry. We couldn't. It's a Saturday night game. It's Mag and David coming off of this great run at Satrin. Josh is our player of the week. Also, again, just another shout out to Tzvi Saidi, who, when I mentioned DRS, again, very worthy of the player of the week. And, I'm not sure we won't have him on later in the season, but phenomenal MVP of the Satrin tournament and a phenomenal player. So we looked at it, and it's Mag and David TABC. I know it's our third game of the week. I want to pat myself on the back. I'm undefeated because I've only gone against myself, and I got them both right. When TABC won their
I'm never going to get to predict a game, aren't I?
Right. Well, you will. TABC is going to have a break, and we're going to have to find another team. We'll get Rambam Hafner for the last playoff spot or something. I don't know.
TABC's last 2 games are against Frisch and JEC, so I don't anticipate those games being games of the week.
Right. All right. So there you go. You can relax on that. So I think this game is huge, and you alluded to this earlier. I didn't even realize. Obviously, you have this inside information. Magan playing their butts off right now, playing a lot of basketball. Now they get a break because I don't think they've since Satrin probably until this upcoming Saturday, they probably have no game. Or if they do, I don't think it's against a team that probably should give them a problem. Playing a lot of basketball, they're in tune with each other. They're playing their best ball of the season. I think that's no secret. TABC coming off a layup. They haven't played since the Ramaz game.
Yeah.
Right, which was...
They haven't practiced all that much either.
Right. Wow. So this is like, it's really been shut down, hit the books time and celebrate Hanukkah at TABC. And, I think this is going to be a great game. And again, every game TABC plays, they have the advantage because Eyal is by far the best big man in the league. I consider Joe Aaron more of a hybrid. I think Eyal is just he's the big man when you need a bucket. I saw against Ramaz. He drags guys to the basket. He's a really good foul shooter, high percentage shooter, and he doesn't force shots. So he gives that advantage. I love the way Mag and David is playing. And I think I wasn't certain once we discussed it, which was last night, about this is our game of the week. I was thinking TABC probably going to win. And I don't know. I feel like with Josh's energy, I think he's kind of drawn me to his side a little. And I agree. It's such a big game for Mag and David because record-wise, they're 7-4, I believe, in the league. A loss could drop them. Obviously, if you have 5 losses, you're not going to be a top 2 seed. So you lose a bye, and then you make your path going against the conference that TABC and SAR and MTA are in, which is a really tough matchup if you are able to win your first matchup. So I think it's going to be a great game. I'm actually going to pick Mag and David to win this game. I think on paper TABC is just with Eyal the X factor, but I think Magid, their home court, Saturday night, I think Josh is going to be phenomenal. And I think, I think Josh is going to have to score 25 points or more to win. I don't think like a 19, 18 points is going to win it. Josh needs to have one of those 36-point games where he's probably had a few of this season already. But I think I can even see Phil guarding Eyal. Phil, as Josh mentioned, is probably the best defender I've seen in the past year or two. I mean, he takes charges, he takes big guys, he takes point guards. But I could see them winning. Before I give like a score prediction, what do you see? And obviously, I know you're not going to give a prediction, but what do you think the biggest matchups to look at are between these two teams?
Yes, I was actually, you kind of answered my question. I was going to ask you if you feel that Josh might take it upon himself to guard Eyal from time to time, because Josh is someone. It seems like he's someone who wants the big assignment.
Yeah, but I don't. They can't handle Josh getting into foul trouble. That's the problem. And Phil is such a smart, heady player. He knows how to sell the offensive foul. He knows how to position himself. I think Josh having to play himself on defense as hard as he's playing offense, I don't think Magan can win that way. I think Josh needs to guard the second or third or fourth option as opposed to the number one, especially a big like Eyal.
I agree with Josh's theory and your theory too. The Magan David will see this game with much higher stakes than TABC. Because I think at this point, TABC is kind of already locked in as a top 2 seed in that conference. It's just a matter of who's going to finish 1 and 2 between them and SAR. But Magan are looking at this game as, we need that bye to go with DRS and avoid having to go to a TABC or an SAR in the second round of the playoffs.
Right, absolutely. So I think, like I said, I'm going with Magan, although I think TABC is the better team. I mean, I really do. I just think with everything in Josh's passion and energy, I think it's convinced me. I think it's and you said, by the way, I totally forgot they played in the Memphis tournament, and you said that was an overtime game. They seemed both teams were at full strength, I believe, right? Everyone was there. So I think I could see another overtime game. I really can, but I think it's going to be a close game. If Magan wins, it's by less than 5 points. If TABC wins, they win by 10 or more. But my prediction is, Magan to win 62-58 as they beat TABC potentially in overtime. But I think, again, I'm not putting any of your money on that game, so don't worry about that. But that's how I see it. And you obviously are going to give no prediction, but
I'm undefeated.
You're undefeated, exactly. You are. You also have the first pick in the draft. There's it's no wins, but no, that's our game of the week: the Magan David Warriors against the TABC Storm. And we do promise, believe that their next game of the week will not have TABC. Okay, there's going to be
begging for it.
enough matchups coming up that we'll be able to choose one. So that is our show. It was another great week. Again, we're not sure when our next show will be with a lot of the schools going on Yeshiva winter break. If potentially something happens, over the next couple of days, and we can get a show in, because Yeshiva break is not till next Wednesday, Thursday.
It's a week from tomorrow.
Right. So we will potentially have another show. We'll see, what happens here in the next couple of days. But again, thank you to our sponsors, Holy Schnitzel, Gotta Get a Bagel. They've been with us all season, and they are, tremendous establishments. Go get your food there when you're in the 5 towns, especially when you're playing DRS, Rambam, Hafter, Hank, even North Shore. It's not a far drive. There's so much good food, and they're great places. So we thank them for sponsoring us. Thank Josh Chabbott for being our player of the week. I thank you, Oren, for pronouncing all the names correctly. And I'm Ari Wickes for Oren Glickman. This is Yeshiva League Pass podcast tip-off show number 4 in the books.